Hi everybody, I want to do another video in the discipleship course. This is unit 205 and this video is number 9, and the title of the video is Observation and Research. Now then, what's all that about? Well, very often, we've linked this discipleship course to like being in the army, okay? But at this particular level, we would need to talk about what's called intelligence. We need to understand things about the enemy and the target groups that we're trying to reach. The first thing is, as an evangelist or as a pastor or in any other type of Christian mission, we need to learn how to listen. We need to learn how to listen. And most of you will be saying, but I'm not interested in listening. I know what I've got to say. I'm just going to go out there and I'm going to preach it. Yes, I know. I understand that. But you need to learn to listen. And I'll tell you why. You must never assume that you know what people think or how they think. You must never assume that. Your job is first to understand, and second, to be understood. But first, your job is to understand. You need to find out, you need to go out into this world and you need to find out a number of things about people. You need to understand what is their world view. How do they understand how this world is? How do they see it operating? What are the principles upon which they work? What is it that they consider is cool? What do they consider as being the chief things in life? Okay, now when you know the answer to these questions, you will have more intelligence about how you can reach them. It's no good, for example, you going out there and preaching and using 25 different words that they don't know what they mean. Once one of those words is dropped into a sentence, their mind will immediately stop. They cannot process a word, so they cannot go forward. So you have to be able to understand all the words that they use, and you have to be able to use only the words that they use. Now you also need to be able to understand how they think. It's no good you presenting an argument that they cannot follow. It's no good you making a reference that they don't understand. It's no good you presenting a principle that they cannot comprehend. Now, do you see? So it is absolutely essential that you learn what their worldview is. And I'll give you a few more points. You need to find out what is their level of expertise. Okay? If you were speaking to somebody on the telephone and you weren't able to judge their age or their ability, you just cannot carry on as if there's some expert in religion. Can't do that. This person may be 10. This person may have no biblical understanding about any of the concepts that you want to talk about. So your job then is to find out their level of expertise. The third thing is that you need to find out what they think is cool. You need to find out what they think is the right way to be or the right way to aspire to be. Okay? I mean, for example, if you went out to speak to people and you found that they believed that to be really cool, you had to be a gangster. Now, what's that going to do in their worldview? You might think that their ideal for a person is to be a footballer. You might think that their ideal is to be the Archbishop of Canterbury. You might find that their ideal is to be a dominating man in the family. What is it? How do they think? How do they think? What are the thought processes What is it that they think is cool? Right? The next thing you need to find out is, what is it that people think about God? Now, there will be some that may say, oh, there's not a God. There'll be others that say, yeah, there is a God, but he's cruel. Another person may say, yeah, there is a God, but I hate him. I hate him. You might find that you speak to somebody and you say, tell me about God, and they say, I love him. You see, until you discover what they think, you're nowhere. How are you going to frame some sort of conversation with someone and you don't even know what they think? No idea what they think. You may need to find out whether they've been hurt. They might be hurt and they're blaming you. They might be hurt and they're blaming your church. They might be hurt and they're blaming God. Now, there's a whole variety of hurts that a person can have. You need to find out what they feel about life. Are they just at this moment about to commit suicide? Or is this a person that is full of the joy of life? Is this person depressed? Or is this person supremely content? You need to find out how they are. And so this is what's called intelligence. This is about listening and asking appropriate questions so that you can find out how they are and where they're coming from. And lastly, you're going to have to find out what's going to hinder them from being saved. Is there something that will hinder them from being saved? You need to be able to find out from the Lord what are the words or the concepts or the ways whereby you can explain in very simple terms that they can understand what the gospel is all about. Now then, that's what's called intelligence. You need to learn these things. Now, you also need to learn three things. You need to learn about your enemy. Now, your enemy is not the people you're going to meet. Your enemy is Satan. And the Bible says we're not ignorant of his tactics. We're not ignorant of his tricks. Aren't you? What are his tricks? You need to understand, maybe even have a list of the tactics that Satan uses. Did you know that he has tactics? He does. That's a challenge, and I'll give you a little taster here. First of all, he misquotes scripture in order to lead people astray. Okay? He twists the conversation in such a way that sin becomes ever so reasonable. He blasphemes God. That's just three of his tricks. Now, there's an awful lot more. I want you now to think about this and go away and examine it and discover for yourself what are his tactics. There we are. Now, the next subject is the world. You need to research this. You need, as a disciple of Christ, to understand the world at large. I don't just mean to understand everything about everything, but to have an overall understanding of the whole world. How many Christians are in the world? Does it matter? It does if you want to have an overall perspective. How many Buddhists are there in the world? That's an interesting thing, isn't it? How many Mormons are there in the world? You say, well, I'm not sure, Stephen. I don't know the numbers. That's okay. But you can understand that there's a tremendous amount of knowledge that we might obtain about the world in which we live. Next question might be, what are the evils that are in the world? What are the terrible disasters that occur? Who are the most wicked people in this world to be able to avoid? You might also say, what is the thinking of this world? How do the people of this world think? What are their religions and cults? Would you be able to name them? Would you be able to describe them? What is the godless nature of the world? And lastly, who are the philosophers and the political and religious leaders of the world? When you have answered these questions, and these questions might take you a few years, you set yourself the task and say, I'm gonna face these questions. I'm going to learn about the world in which I live. You might discover this takes you ages to learn, but at the end of it all, you will be a very informed person about the world in which you live. And the last area, we've talked about Satan and we've talked about the world. I want us to talk about the flesh. Now, what's the flesh, you say? It's that old nature, that old person, that person that you were before you ever became a Christian. You need to understand yourself and your failings. And you've only got to ask your wife, and you've only got to ask your children. You've only got to ask your colleagues, and they'll let you know what your failings are. Very important that we understand our failings. Also, you need to understand the flesh and its power. You go on a fast and you'll discover the power of the flesh. Okay, go on a long fast and you'll discover that your body has a power over your mind. Did you know that the things that you eat and the things that you drink and even the biome in your stomach is the thing that controls your life? It does. More than you can ever know. You need to understand the sins which are common to all men and women. And you need to discover the sins that are your problem. So these are great questions. This is a tremendous amount of self-examination. You need to understand the addictions of men and of their power over people. That's very important. You need to ask yourself whether there are addictions in your life that you may need some special help about. Lastly, you need to understand the desires of the flesh. The desires of the flesh. Now, what is all this going to do? How is all this understanding? Where's it going to lead you? It's going to lead you to being an informed person. You will understand things. You will understand things. Now, the practical task for this week is a very simple thing. I want you to do an open-air questionnaire. An open-air questionnaire. Okay? And what you're going to do is you're going to go out and you're going to have a black book and you're going to ask people what they think about everything. What do you think about this? And what do you think about that? And what do you think about God? And what do you think about the Prime Minister? And what do you think about life? And what do you think about money? And what do you think about home life? And you just keep going and they'll tell you. People love to tell you. People will tell you. And when they tell you everything that's in their heart, you'll be more informed. This is what's called intelligence. So how many times you're going to do that? You're going to do that to 20 different people. 20 people. And you can do that. And you might, after a while, develop certain questions that you'd like the answers to. That's good. And also, we want you to actually give a talk 5 times, 5 different talks, that will answer or deal with all of the issues that people raise. What is it that people think? What is it that people talk about? You're going to know after you've spoken to 20 people. And then you're going to produce 5 talks, or maybe 5 pieces of writing. But you're going to get 5 talks sorted out in your mind, which address all of the issues that people tell you about. I'm looking forward to reading what it is that you discover. And I wish you every blessing and look forward to seeing you on our next episode. God bless you all. Bye for now.